it after. All right, we're just waiting for one committee member to come back and then we'll start.
So far, so good. We'll see how it works out.
Okay. Great. Well, I'm going to call this meeting of the Disposal Site Advisory Committee to order. I'm Rachel Purcell, the chair. We're going to move a couple of things in the agenda around. And before we get to public comment, we're going to have Sean McGuire talk about NRAC, which is just beginning to work on the expansion proposal evaluation.
And by meeting 33 minutes ago.
Yeah. All right.
Charlie is on the line. I see, who is one of our two newest members. So I'll also defer to her if I miss anything. Just apparently there was a request to just hear the conversation we had with NRAC. That's the Environment and Natural Resources Advisory Committee. The reason why they're now involved is by code, SWAC, Solid Waste Advisory Committee, was deemed to be in charge of having submitting a recommendation to the Planning Commission regarding expansion. This is what occurred in 21. Since we don't have a SWAC right now, NRAC was teamed to do that since it's in the code. So NRAC was asked to research, come to a conclusion to provide a recommendation to the Planning Commission. Just as a quick, I'm sure you all know, but there's anyone in the public that's online. The process goes, the Planning Commission makes the decision. If that's appealed, it goes to the Board of Commissioners. If that's appealed, it goes to LUBA, Land Use Board of Appeals. So we just finished up. We don't really have, there's no formal, if you've gone through this in the code, there's no real checklist. It's not like a yes or no dating service or something. I mean, you just kind of like come up with how you want to address this. Definitions of area, impact, temporal, like all these kinds of things, like how long. And so myself, Bailey, and the planner that's identified to help NRAC through this process, James Wright, we just opened it up with just an overview of how they can proceed with this and some of the boundaries and what they should be recommending, or not recommending, what they should be considering for the recommendation, and just kind of opened up for discussion. And they were just kind of going, there's a lot there. I mean, environmental, natural resources, water, air pollution, toxics, leachate, everything under the sun. Consider that they really only have 4 or 5 weeks. There's no calendar as of yet. But you start doing the days, and we're looking at mid-April for planning and decisions in early May. So, and they meet like you will, the second Wednesday in May. It's really one meeting, so you can't get too in depth. So that was a conversation. I thought it was lively. I thought they were trying to just kind of formulate where and what to do. And so we're going to be starting to develop, well, they are going to be starting developing some templates, questions, websites, what should be considered, and also how fast can they do it. So I hope that the three of us as staff set, construct and context and how to be moving forward. And then after all that, we start once again putting solar panels out in Alsea. So I see our chair, the NRAC chair, Jason, is on there as well as Charlie. Did I miss anything, gloss over anything that you wanted to share that's germane? Oh, I got a nod from Charlie. Jason might be with his kid since we just finished up just a minute ago. Any of you have questions?
Yeah,
Please.
Has the Planning Commission requested specific things of NRAC? Is there any specific input they want?
No, It's just we're just, was it agency reviewing? Yeah, agency referral. We're kind of the same as like DEQ and EPA and Fish and Wildlife and all those of like, you are coming at these from specific perspectives. Members from NREC are not, they don't have PhDs in solid waste or groundwater chemistry or anything like that. So there was no real direction, just what's your viewpoint? Like, what is your, as our county advisory committee, what is your perspective on this? And so that there was no specific, another like, and then one of the things we also commented on, there's a narrative that NREC has a leg up or something, or whatever NREC says the planning commission is going to do. That's no, actually last time SWAC said to approve and planning commission said no. So it is one voice of many, and that's how we're going to proceed. So, and then there's all, not only of the agencies, but there's going to be days of opportunity for public comment. So that will all be aggregated by the consultant. I always forget their name, but and the planning commission, the planning department, and presented to the planning commission.
Okay.
Plannings.
Yeah, lots of plannings. I'll just ask one more question.
Mm-hmm.
So my understanding is that when it comes to making these decisions within the planning commission, within the board of commissioners, and with LUBA, the decisions have to be made based on like actionable kinds of things, legal things in the land use code, right?
That's where it's so fuzzy.
Okay.
I mean, there's 3 lines. I mean, adjacent properties, the second one, I forgot, adjacent properties, and then the third is within that area, but there's no definition of area.
I'm sorry, I'm not following. Can you?
So in the code, there are 3 lines of what needs to be considered,
Okay.
but they're so vague. And Bailey has, we can email those out. They're just very vague. It's not like this much particular matter or this much of impact to of anything like that. It's just incredibly vague. And that's where it's kind of up to all of the agencies to identify what the specifics are for the planning commission to consider. So yeah, we talked a lot about area. Is the area the 59 acres? Is the area within a mile? Is the area county-wide? Is the area region-wide? Groundwater, I mean, that could expand quickly. And so that's another issue of kind of defining for NRAC what those are.
Okay.
So my questions were similar to Rachel's in terms of kind of figuring out the metrics that they're using to evaluate this. And thank you for saying that they're not really sure yet, but you've mentioned some other things that raised another question for me. So the role of like Fish and Wildlife and these other resource agencies interacting with NRAC, that's.
Nope. There's a lot of people there's a lot of narrative out there that's just not right.
Okay.
And so
that's what I don't understand.
Yeah, we are all, NRAC, I keep saying we because I love those guys. NRAC is on its own. Period. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, that is their decision. Same thing as Fish and Wildlife, who I don't know, but might be looking at the rookery across the street. I don't know what they're going to do.
They're on their own.
Yeah, everyone's on their own, and then it's submitted to community development, and then they aggregate all of those comments, and then it's handed off to the planning commission for review and a decision.
And there's no waiting, anything like that. So
Nope. And that's another thing.
Heron Rookery might have an equal score as nearby residents' drinking water well.
There's no scoring.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of how this thing is.
Okay, that's
difficult.
Okay, I come from a background of where there's structure when you're making decisions like this, where there's feasibility studies, scoring, ranking, blah, 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 blah.
I take it like an RFP.
Okay.
Like if we get an RFP, there's 5 categories, get 5 to a 10 of these kind of, then the highest score plus the cost of the RFP, request for proposal, whatever. That ain't it. So that's going to be a tough decision for the planning commission. I'm sure it wasn't easy last time. Talks Trash was an 18-month endeavor that was following up with that. So yeah, especially the waiting. I keep hearing, oh, well, if NREC says this, and that, nope, not at all. It's one viewpoint as well as others, plus public comment for the commission, for the planning commission to review.
Do you think we could get either someone from the planning commission or maybe your planner colleague, James Wright, to come in and talk to us about the criteria the planning commission is going to use? Would that be possible?
I can make that request.
Did you see how fast I threw him under the bus on that one? Sorry, Bailey.
The reason, I mean, part of the reason I'm asking is like, I think just for a level of public transparency, I think a lot of the public is wondering
I think
like
so
how
too.
this is going to happen. And, you know, even let's say the planning commission says, you know, this expansion proposal is not consistent with the goals outlined by the county. You know, like at a certain point, like any kind of decision to like overturn a decision or anything like has to have a grounding in the law. Like, so all of this input is going to come in, right? But legally, there are only so many things they can do.
This is a really fascinating process. I think I can talk. I don't think county council Vince is going to get mad at me for this. The planning commission is going to look at this with their own thought process. Like, however, these are volunteers.
Mhm.
You know, these aren't, you know, PhD in land use planning, so we have to respect them as volunteers. Then, if that is appealed, then you have a political edge with the three commissioners. And then if that's appealed, LUBA will be purely legal. And I don't know where they're sticking the legal part because of the breadth and kind of the general nature of the code. So it's a great, I mean, those are three different perspectives all hitting the same process. Great question.
Well, I'm just thinking that like, you know, when it comes down to it, like LUBA makes the final call, right? So it is a legal call at the very end, which I think is something that, you know, people are not aware of when they're submitting public comment. Like just saying it's bad is not kind of enough to be actionable. You have to say it's bad and inconsistent with some code or something like that for it to be actionable.
And I don't, candidly, once it gets past these three, I think we're all headed up to the Bahamas or something. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
What helped me last time it went through SWAC was reviewing. I mean, if you could go back to, I forgot when the last one, if it's still recorded with the land. That's the bit, in 21. That would be the one that could review because it's the same process there and you can see their insights and it gives you a little bit more perspective of what's going on.
Right. Like SWAC.
I have a question as well. And I'm coming from the air because I'm in heaven, I guess. So if it does go to LUBA, which seems likely, and that's kind of what we expect, is that it will somehow get kiboshed by the planning commission and the county commissioners, and then it gets appealed. Who's going to defend, or who's going to be like? I know there's a lot of money that will come at the system with the appeal to LUBA. Who does the countermeasure? Who represents the people that don't want it?
If I understood the question correctly, once it gets to LUBA, that's the final decision.
But I don't know the procedure. I don't know if it's like a Supreme Court case where there's two sides. Are they just looking at, is LUBA just gonna look at the materials on their own? I don't know. We can ask Vance.
Is there an attorney? No attorneys?
Well, we had a attorney on DSAC that was on the land use board there. So historically, what land use used to do in the 60s was in district court, but the state transferred it to a land use board, and then it's predicated on land use laws. So that's basically how they approach it.
Charlie, we can look into that for you.
Thank you.
I just don't know the process. I don't want to.
What's the acronym? LUBA?
Land Use Board of Appeals. Sorry about that.
Thank
And that's at the state level, correct?
Can I ask a favor?
Yeah. Sure.
I see Jason want to make, that's the chair of NRAC. I just want to make sure if I said something wrong, is that okay?
Yeah, no, Jason, did you want to make a comment?
It was mostly just to sort of say hi, but also to with Charlie on our NRAC board now, I kind of feel like we have a better coordination between NRAC and DSAC in a way that I like going forward. But I wanted to open it up sort of to you as well as we're trying to figure out what we're doing. Is there anything else that DSAC would like to see or like request at least, or is there a way we can increase our collaboration so that this happens? We have sort of our sense of our mandate and the lack of sort of guidance, not guidance, lack of specific templates that we can create. But that said, there's a lot going on, and we appreciate the help that you have already done a lot of work on.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just going to speak for all of us in saying that we'd be happy to help where we can. We do have the benefit of having a representative from Republic on our committee, who I'm sure would be happy to field questions. I'm also speaking for you, Paul.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll try to answer what I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here, and we, a bunch of us on the committee have, specific interests and fields of expertise that we can draw on to kind of help when you have questions. So, we can just maybe start a dialogue over email and see what we can do.
That sounds like a good place to start. We're still just getting our feet into it, and so as the deluge comes, we'll reach out for sure, and likewise, hopefully from you.
Okay, sounds good. Great. Any other questions for Sean before we release him?
I'll sit for the comment, but I'll take off. Thank you so much, Chair. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move to public comments. Debbie, I think you had a comment to make. Do you want to start?
Yes, sure, that's fine. Let's see. Can you hear and see me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Righty, let me line up my blurb here. So my name is Debbie Palmer. I'm a member of the community group VNEX, which is the Valley Neighbors for Environmental Quality and Safety. My comment is directed to Charlie to pass along to NRAC, since NRAC, I was sitting in on the NRAC meeting, so I'm fresh off of that. And since NRAC is not allowed to receive public comment, I wanted to pass this along to you to pass along to NRAC. But first, based on the conversation you guys were just having, in answer to Rachel's question, the Planning Commission's decision is quasi-judicial, and legally, the Planning Commission's decision is subjective. This is my understanding from all the things that I have learned. Also, my understanding is that LUBA generally is loath to overturn county commissioner decisions unless there's some kind of legal technicality that has been breached or something like that. So, I mean, that's just food for thought for you guys. But back to NRAC, back to my comment for NRAC. So, oops, sorry about that. So one of the things that Dami said was that you guys wanted to hear from the community. So please, if you want to hear from the community, talk to VNEX, talk to us. We are 100% community, and we would be happy to talk to you guys. I think Jason had said something like, does NREC want to invite other people to talk to the group? We would be happy to come and talk to your group. So please consider talking to us. Dami also said that, or asked about getting a hold of additional documents and facts. We have lots of resources. We've been gathering facts since 2021. Give us a list and we'll provide them to you. Another very important point that I wanted to get across is that because you guys were discussing maybe we don't want to say yes or no, maybe we just want to suggest some conditions of approval. What's important to know is that if you're giving conditions, you are agreeing to expansion with conditions, but you are approving expansion. You are agreeing to expansion. So keep that in mind. For comparison, there's no such thing as conditions of denial. There's only conditions of approval. So, and a huge caveat for granting approval with conditions, and this was documented in the BCTT report. Never before in the history of the Coffin Butte landfill have conditions of approval ever been enforced. So think about it. Never before in the history of the landfill have conditions of approval ever been enforced. So it doesn't matter how watertight or airtight you come up with great conditions of approval, they never get enforced. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about making these sorts of, coming up with conditions, which it would be nice if they were enforced, but they are not. So it's just a very important fact to keep in mind. Also, the reason we don't have a SWAC right now, as Sean said, Sean neglected to mention the reason we don't have one is because the county commissioners dissolved SWAC. And that's kind of all I wanted to say. Oh, except one other thing. I wanted to welcome Paul to Corvallis, Benton County, etc. I understand you just relocated here. And quick question, I was wondering how close to the landfill your new home is.
It's in Polk County, so I'll just say
It's up
that.
in Polk County?
Yeah, I'm north of the landfill, so.
Okay,
Great, thank you very much, Debbie.
sure. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to offer a public comment? Paul?
Yeah, hi, I'm Paul Needfeld. You guys might remember me from a month ago. I'm the fellow who raised the question about the intake volume reconciliation of the volume that's used as the basis for the host fee calculation, very important to Benton County, versus the volumes that are reported on the solid waste disposal reports to ODEQ. Paul, my name is Paul Needfeld. I kind of dealt with Brett with this before. You may be primed with an answer. What I was going to tell this body tonight is that we're working between Bailey Payne and I and Ginger Richardson at Republic Services to try to get a definitive answer to that. We can get a pretty close answer, so we're making progress. But once we have a final answer, my expectation is we'll write this up and just send it through Bailey to this body. And by the way, I think that's important because, first of all, the revenue is very important to Benton County. And just from a due diligence standpoint, I think they ought to have a way to cross-check that against the publicly reported information that goes through ODEQ. And secondly, by being able to track this via the quarterly reports that go into ODEQ, Benton County, I hope will get better visibility into what the size of that host fee check will be. That's paid out in the middle of January in the year following the calendar year of the intake. So I think this is worth it for Benton County. We're closing in on an answer, and I think thank everybody for their help on that. Paul, do you have anything else to add? Did you get any information to bring to this meeting on that topic?
That's basically with Brett, and I believe Bailey as well. They have the information, and we've vetted what we've reported and found it to be accurate. But I don't have any other knowledge of that. I know that's something that Brett was working with finance and area to verify and vet all that information for you.
Well, I'm going to be speaking with Brett about this topic this upcoming week. We don't have it set yet, but that's our plan.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody very much, and we'll write that up. You know, a quick answer. Hopefully, once we get all tied with a nice ribbon, and we'll just put it in the record. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks so much, Paul. We look forward to seeing that. Anyone else want to offer a public comment? If you could pipe up in the chat now, that would be helpful. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next item in our agenda. All right, I'm gonna move on then. So before we kind of jump into the next thing, which is reviewing minutes and stuff, I just wanted to flag that the second half of this meeting, we're gonna kind of have another scope and goals discussion, but I'm gonna try to keep it as focused as possible. So we're not just kind of like doing a bunch of navel gazing, what is DSAC? But to just set up some priorities for the rest of the year and just come up with a good tractable plan for what we could focus on. All right, so on to last meeting's minutes and a review of last month's action items, which should be the first thing in the agenda packet. Is it? It is. I had the teeny tiniest of corrections, which was On page 7, it should be Brett and not Brent. I think your admin just mixed up the Brents. Or actually, that was not Brett, actually, it was Brent.
Not correct.
It was Brent.
There's too many B's on this. I keep calling Brett, Brett.
The first name is correct, but the last name is, yeah, okay. Otherwise, it looked all right to me. Did anyone else have any corrections or clarifications they wanted to make to the minutes? Okay, would anyone like to move to accept them? I'll move to accept them for a second.
Second,
Last month's.
This was last month.
Yeah, it was not in attendance, so I abstained.
Okay. Sorry, Charlie, did you say something?
I was just trying to second, or I'll do the whatever we need.
Awesome, thank you. All those in favor of accepting last meeting's minutes? Oh, we have abstentions, people weren't here, but everyone else, David, are you voting nay? David Hathman?
I think he froze.
Oh, there he is. It seems like you're having some connectivity issues, David.
And maybe drop your video. It might be too demanding on your bandwidth.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, my bandwidth should be fine, but I will drop the video to make sure that that doesn't deal with it. Okay. I occasionally hear you guys, and most of the time I hear you, but sometimes I'm missing it.
We're just voting on accepting the minutes from last meeting.
I approve too. I think Charlie tried to second it.
Yeah, she did. And then we moved to a vote, and that's when you got frozen. But all right, so moving on, I think we had a couple of items on the action items at the end. None of which some of these I think I want to kind of get to in the second half of, because we're going to talk about a lot of these priorities like fire and methane and stuff. So I think we can just skip that for now. I'm just trying to move us along. So I think we can just, yeah. I think there was one thing we were going to do is try to arrange for the hydrologist who works with Republic to come and visit us maybe in May. That was good.
Yeah, Jessica, I believe. Yeah.
Or I think
did Brett mention that or something, or?
Yeah, Brett suggested it. I think the hydrologist.
We had a couple people recommending that.
Yeah, he or Julie recommended. We're thinking of like a retired hydrologist.
Oh, that's news to me, so I'll reach out to them.
That would be Eric. He's the retired one.
Okay.
That wrote the past reports.
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, to Eric Tuppen?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he's retired.
He's retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe he's just working.
I reached out to him. He's somebody I've known professionally for decades. So I reached out to him. I have not heard back.
Oh, because that's the reason why we switched our stormwater company, because they said he retired. At least that was the word that I came.
He was
a
single shingle guy and he retired.
Yeah, I think he still does a little bit of work here and there, but the workload is.
So Rachel, I have to add, it's the same topic, but to add on to that. So I've been looking at some of the photographs and plots from that last report, the one that's available 2023. And I just have some questions about the monitoring network. And so I'd like to talk to DEQ. I was going to see if Eric would call me back. He hasn't yet though, but there's just some kind of unusual things in there that I'm seeing. And I think it's my concern, I'll just state it, is that people are taking the data at face value, thinking that they're representative. And I guess I'm kind of taking a step back to saying, are these wells functioning properly, and is the monitoring network designed properly?
Okay, so these are the wells sampling for like heavy metals and things like
Yes.
that? Okay.
And I think that's a DEQ question where I'd like to start, who's looking at it? And I just brought a little example of something I'm seeing. It's like, that doesn't look right at all to me. And so your people I just have some questions.
No, in 23, that would have been Eric.
That would have been
Sampler.
Eric. Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, we can easily, I mean, we'll look into that and see who we can get.
Sure.
David, what's an example?
Well,
Like
here's one example I
intervals or-
have. This is well 26. This line, this one here is a hydrograph from well 26. Y'all can't see it. But water's supposed to go up and down seasonally, right? Rains in the winter, water goes up. And that's like this top well here is functioning properly, going up and down. This bottom well is just flat. It's not responding. So I thought, well, that's kind of weird. So then I went and looked at the chemical data. And the top well is well 26, and the little dots, this is calcium. You could pick any of them. They're all about the same. Calcium's going up and down with different, based on inputs from recharge, et cetera. And here's calcium on the bottom line from well 26. It's just the same, it's virtually the same number. So something's wonky there. And I read the report and they said the well's not, it's stable or something like that. It's like, well, it's not, I don't know what it's monitoring, but it's not monitoring season variability.
If you have a well closer to the stream, it'll stay more consistent than a well upstream that is impacted by seasonal variability. Whereas if you have a well closer to your outflow point, you might have a little bit more stability in that. I just don't know where the wells are. I need a map to look at the wells.
I have
But,
that too.
You know,
Well 26 is right next to that pond at the entrance. Tokatee Marsh, I think. I'm just wondering if it's
Okay.
just hydraulically connected with that surface water pond. So that's an
That's a good
example.
question. I
As
can't
an
answer.
example. I have
Right,
other examples of the wells constructed back in the 70s, which were called nested wells.
Mhm.
They basically put multiple wells
Yeah.
in the same hole. and
different elevations, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like there's some leakage going. They don't, that type of construction isn't approved by EPA anymore. It's not, I used to do it a long, long time ago, back when I was first starting. And then, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, they said, no, you can't do that anymore. But those wells are still being used as compliance wells here. And I'd like to ask DEQ what they think about that.
Okay.
It's just unusual to me, Paul.
And it's really interesting, EPA, because I'm familiar with multiple sites in other states that do nested wells up to last year.
It
So
used
that's
to
really
be, common. In
Right.
Oregon, anyway, it was outlawed, or not outlawed, but it's Oregon's wonky, but the Department of Water Resources manages
Mhm.
well construction. DEQ manages water quality, but
Right.
OWRD doesn't allow that construction anymore. So,
interesting.
because it could potentially interconnect multiple aquifers.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's still going on out there, and I had some questions about that as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know, I just have some questions that I'd like to talk to
That's good
somebody
to know.
about.
I think, so in the second half of our meeting, I think we do have something on leachate in our like potential list of priorities, and maybe we can find a way to figure
Yeah.
out like where that fits in. I don't know if it's like a large project or just a small kind of thread that you'd like to pull on.
And I understand, I think with the approach and everything, I got it, but having done sort of critical reviews on things, I always like to step back and say, okay, are the data collection valid?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Just based on the age of the wells and stuff. So that's where I'm coming from.
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. The other item we had on that is not related to just general topics we're looking at was, I think, Charlie, you were going to reach out as our communications chair to a few folks. Do you want to give us a status update on that?
So I did reach out to Senator Merkley, but I got nothing back from them and a special contact that Bailey had come up with. But I did notice that Bailey has addended to our meeting packet evidence of an EPA investigation, from what I can tell. So whenever we talk about that, that would be worthwhile. But I did not hear anything back from Senator Merkley, but I did watch the videos. And that's what led me to the Title V information on air quality permit from the DEQ that got delayed again. We were supposed to, it was supposed to, I guess, the original Title V air quality permit was issued in 2015, maybe. Is that correct, Bailey?
Around there.
That sounds about
It's probably
right.
been about a decade.
Yeah, and they were supposed to re-update it, but they haven't re-updated it since Republic Services has been, and Coffin Butte landfill has been accepting a lot more and a lot more sites. So the refuse that's coming in from multiple places outside the county and the amount, the air quality permit has not been adjusted. And they were supposed to have a hearing early January and they've rescheduled it again. And I think what I heard is DEQ is about 6 years behind. I don't know if that's true. Bailey, maybe you could speak to that?
I don't know. The folks in DEQ that I work with are in the solid waste side.
So at any rate, so I did go to their site trying to find out any information I could on the Coffin Butte landfill and was really met with nothing, a lot of nothing, except for that the Title V air quality permit has not been reevaluated since 2015.
Great, thank you, and thanks for flagging that, that item in the meeting packet. I want to come back to that at the second half of the meeting, because it kind of plays into our questions about methane. Let's move on for now to the last item on the first half of the agenda, which is approving the 2024 Community Concerns Annual Report. And if that date does not jump out at you, the significance of that date, this is the last annual report, Community Concerns Annual Report we have to approve before we're completely caught up. I don't know if anyone got a chance to look through it. I was kind of surprised at the number of odor complaints this time. It was a lot.
It was a lot. I thought the wheel of color at the beginning was awesome. And the only suggestion I have is to put down the number of complaints in numbers rather than in text. I think there were 235 or whatever. I'd have to find it on my phone, but however many there are, if they put it in as a number rather than spelling out the word 235, probably like right under the wheel so that they know how many complaints are represented in that wheel, the colored wheel that you did that was so gorgeous. That is all the county commissioners will look at when that goes to them, the annual report. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a good point. Seems eminently doable. I did have a question on the sources of the complaints. So I'm presuming that there's like a whole avenue of complaints that go straight to Republic, right? That are not represented in this report. Like this is just.
They should be all
Those are included.
DEQ and the ones that go to the Coffin Butte landfill.
Okay, so they're
They
kind of,
should be, yes.
they're copied in some way.
They are, they should be, everything that I've given you is our tracker.
Yep.
And they come from DEQ. One calls to DEQ and go to Coffin Butte website. They all should be listed there, yeah.
Okay.
I asked for public services and also DEQ for any complaints that they received.
Okay.
And then I try and, if there were obvious duplicates, I try and filter those out. And then it's all integrated in the report that you have.
Gotcha. Okay. Did anyone else have any notes or comments about this?
I just support that it looks pretty good, and I think putting the number instead of written out that was just suggested sounds fabulous. Thanks.
Great. I did want to flag that there was like one complaint about how easy it was to give feedback on the website, on the Republic website.
Yeah, so if we could divert a little bit, maybe I can explain
Okay.
the whole process, because in the last report, the last meeting, I was accused of gaslighting one of the comments, and it's not. And I just need people to understand the process. So I'm gonna take a step back to January and February. On February 7th, I got a list of complaints from DEQ. They dated January 27th. Okay, so how can I turn back the time to see what was going on that site, except to ask my teammates and the crews what was going on that time of the complaint, then look at the weather report and look at our odor when we do an odor patrol. That is the data that I have 10 days after the fact, okay? A lot of times these odor complaints come in, they don't have a location, they don't have any information, it stinks and that's it. That doesn't help me to try to determine what it is. Is it a trash odor? Is it a gas odor? And a lot of times people can't make the difference, but if it's a trash odor, there's steps that we can do to mitigate that. If there's a gas odor, I know what to hone in on and look when I walk the field. There's also what we're trying to do, and from my understanding, in the past, people used to go to CoffinViewLandfill.com website and fill out the complaint that lists the address, the time, and everything else. But things were being investigated, so people started calling DEQ. That is my understanding. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I received. Since I've been here, I've had 3 or 4 complaints come in through the website, and I go out. If I have time, I will take time out if I'm not in a meeting, and I will drive to the location, the address. I walk out and I stand around for a couple minutes determining, do I smell anything? What do I smell? Is it earthy? Is it smoky? Whatever I can smell. And I'm getting tools like an anemometer to make sure the wind direction is correct. I don't have that yet. And I cannot reply to these people until I have access to the website, which we're working on right now. So calling DEQ is fine, but if you want an immediate response, I really recommend going to the Coffin View website, because I can't do anything 10 days after, and I'm really working to make sure I respond. And I take a picture of the address, and I actually do a little selfie to show that I was there as part of my report, to show that I was there. I'm not going to walk up to your front door, because even in Republic Services, someone might not be home, it might be a dog, I don't know. So I just a safety thing.
So Paul, so just so I have a sense of what you're saying, you're going to make it easier. You're in the process of trying to make it easier.
I am trying to make it easier to have a more immediate response.
Okay.
On Friday, I had received another list of complaints from DEQ that date back 10 days.
Okay.
So the only thing I can do is look at weather data, ask my teams what was going on at that time. It's very difficult to try and mitigate and understand what's going on 10 days later.
Gotcha. I'm just, the person who wrote in this was basically saying he could not find within Contact Us or any other publicly accessible page the odor complaints form. He couldn't even find it. If he says, it's a hidden page, he says. If you search for complaint form or odor complaint on their website, you get no results. The only way to find it right now is to search on the word odor. And then and only then is there a clickable link to their odor.
Okay, because that's how I found it. Honestly, just hit odor. But yeah, I can work with IT or however to make it easier for people to access it.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's something I can work on. I can reach out to people to say, hey, have a more distinguishable link.
Yeah.
But I just want to, that's kind of been, I know that's we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I just kind of wanted to lay that out before people have to drop or come on. That just, I don't know what happened before. I don't care what happened. I do care, but I'm here now, and I will make every effort with my team to try and get to those complaints when they come in. It's not always going to happen. If you send an email at 11 o'clock at night on Saturday, I'm not going to see it till Monday morning, to be honest. I mean, that's something that maybe in the future we develop a little bit better system, but if it's working hours, we'll make every effort to try to address that and go to that that location just to verify.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right, sounds good, thank you. Does anyone else have any notes or comments on the Community Concerns Annual Report? I'll entertain a motion to accept them and submit them to DEQ with the correction to the number, unless anyone has anything else.
I would move that.
Can I get a second?
Sure, I'll second.
All right, all those in favor of accepting? All right. I can't see you, David, so I don't know if you
I
voted
think
yes or no.
he's,
Okay.
I think David is gone.
All right, well, hopefully he'll come back. So we're actually 3 minutes ahead of schedule. But let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break now. So let's reconvene at 6:53, and then we'll continue on.
Other elements of the packet, for example, email from Debbie that's kind of a butter to the.
So we're dragging our feet with the break, but we're back now. Can you hear us all right?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so the bulk of there are a few things in the meeting packet we can discuss toward the end, but the bulk of this time I'm hoping we can use to kind of set our priorities for 2025. So we've raised, do you have like a copy of that you could throw on a screen or something like that?
the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There have been a ton of kind of things that we've talked about in our time over the last few months. And at some point, it would be good to kind of figure out, we have limited number of people, limited amount of time, and we should probably set some priorities. Otherwise, I feel like, for one thing, we won't be able to give, the Board of Commissioners actionable and meaningful input if we're just kind of like going off in a bunch of different directions. And I think we'll also just kind of, if we don't give ourselves some kind of like deliverables, we run the risk of just going down like rabbit holes basically and not producing anything. So
Others
what I'm hoping we can do to start, is basically
I just emailed you.
look through this chart. I think Bailey has emailed it to
Thanks.
the folks
Yes,
online.
and I love it. I just want to say.
Okay, Charlie, is the last column you see on the right, is that PFAS leachate? It's kind of cut off for us. It's
You
not.
can minimize the. size.
Actually, I see traffic and road. No, I think his last on the one he sent us was hydrology and groundwater, and not the one that is on the screen now to look at.
Okay, do you think you can minimize this so we can see the whole thing? We're only seeing a few columns.
Minimize?
Yeah, just to zoom out.
in. Zoom out, there you go.
Okay,
Oh, there it is.
can everyone still see that?
No.
I can walk closer to the screen.
All right, well, I'll stand up and just take a microphone with me and say what we've got. So we've got fire safety, methane odors committee monitoring. I'll read them out a little bit. So fire safety, which is what David is working on already, which is like more guidance for the Board of Commissioners. So I feel like we can take this one out because it's already in process. Methane and odors, looking at landfill gas monitoring, odor mitigation. This is something that David is starting to work on with Paul, I believe. It's just the two of you
I
for
have
now.
not had any communications with
Okay.
David yet regarding that.
There's a plan for David to talk to you about this. The expansion application, monitoring it, maybe submitting comment to the Planning Commission ourselves. Title V air permit kinds of things, which I don't really know very much about at this point, but something we can discuss. I'm not sure what this one is. Coffin Butte reports. Bailey, do you know what that is?
That's the annual report that Coffin Butte, or the Republic Services provides.
Okay, so looking at that report that Republic provides.
And then the DSAC, once they receive it, probably in April or May, at that point, they would make a motion to accept it or give input on it, and then it would go to the commissioners.
Rachel, can I interrupt you?
Yeah,
So this is a great list. The timeline on this list, so the application, the decision is going to be made in June, July? I mean, does this all have to get done and
Yes.
something to NRAC or the commissioners by May 30th or something
yeah,
like that?
yes. So if
Okay.
we decide for that to be one of our priorities, that would probably go to the top of the list in terms of timeframe.
And the deliverable will be like some kind of a report or tech memo or something saying, we looked at this, here's what we found, and here's what we think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could decide.
Okay,
Okay. We could have short-term input to NRAC if we felt like it. We could submit our own public comment to the Planning Commission. I think that would be something we
it
could
seems
decide.
like a great one to interact with NRAC on, so we're not duplicating efforts.
Yeah. We'll get to deliverables.
Okay,
But for now, I'm just kind of like, I want us to basically figure out what we're most interested in pursuing. Bailey, can we just delete the Coffin Butte or black out the Coffin Butte reports thing? Because I feel like that's something the committee does as a whole. We don't need to make that something new. Litter, PFAS and leachate, traffic and road damage, wildlife, community education and engagement, service issues at the landfill, wait times, billing, things like that. And then hydrology and groundwater, which I think might also belong with PFAS and leachate. I'm not sure.
Different things.
Two different things.
different things.
Okay. So that's the list we have. We're already through the first quarter of 2025. So I feel like we should probably identify 3 things that we want to do this year. I feel like that's a manageable kind of list. That isn't to exclude people from like pursuing lines of interest, like asking questions and things like that, but just kind of as a committee, we should probably identify the things that we're most interested in pursuing. Does that sound like a good plan of action?
May I comment, please?
Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, Paul, I've been trying to get in touch with you, but I don't think it's working. So let's make an effort to do so together, and then I'd like to cover those 2 topics and get them out of the way.
Have you
Okay.
been emailing me or calling me? I have not seen any phone messages or emails from you since our last conversation when you were on site last
Go ahead,
month.
Bailey.
Not sure.
I think Brett actually is the one that we've been asked to work with on that.
Okay, so yeah, because I haven't had any communications with Dave. I would have responded to you, David, if you would have emailed me, but I haven't seen anything, so I'm not familiar with what was going on with that. So.
Okay, so let's, Bailey, can you slide this over?
Folks, things are not working very well for me. I don't know if you can even hear me, but I'll communicate directly Bailey to do the communication scheme, but I'm happy to do it directly to you, Paul.
Yeah, that's fine. I just, like I said, I haven't seen anything, but I'd be more than happy to respond if I get an email.
Okay,
I have no problem.
great, thank you. I think we can hide the fire safety column too, since that's in process. All right, so this is our list. We have, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble counting this evening. How many is that? 10 possible topics. And I'd like everybody to vote on their top 4. So we can just do this verbally, I think, Bailey, and you can just kind of fill in the columns for everybody. Does anyone want to go first?
Sure,
Okay,
I'll go first. Methane and odors to me is important. It's column C. And I would rank that above the title in permitting because that's going to do what it's going to do. It doesn't really have, I mean, it's a process.
sorry.
So C is important. H and H is in PFAS leachate and also hydrology and groundwater. And those are the top three. Obviously, the expansion is kind of like all that stuff feeds it. So the
All-encompassing.
expansion would be the top four.
Okay.
My top four.
Rachel, I'll just mention that when I talk to people, I also talk about PFAS a lot at NRAC. And PFAS, and Jason can speak to that, but Jason, he's kind of sort of here hovering, NRAC chairperson in the background. But PFAS also can be in the methane / odors because it's be aerosolized as well. So I think PFAS, methane, odors, PFAS and leachate and hydrology and groundwater, which I think are the big things. Air and water are kind of our big things. Obviously water goes through the ground. I guess all goes together.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, Charlie. I mean, we could probably simplify this a lot and just have an air, an air column and a water column.
Yeah, and a dirt and groundwater, ground. That's the three biggies. So, but I'll be involved in the expansion application because of the NRAC piece, and the Title V air permit is part of the methane and odors piece, I think.
Sorry, so can you give me your top four?
I can tell you my top four, which are going to be methane / odors, which is C, and D, and H, and M.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right. Bailey, you ready? Yeah. Okay, why doesn't David go next?
David, do you want to tell me 3 or 4 of your top ones?
David, you're on mute.
He's talking on the phone with Bailey. So we're just kind of, because he's having connectivity issues. So we're just in a holding pattern for a second. He's giving Bailey his top priorities.
Cool.
The reason I'm not using, I unmuted just now. If you hear this, this is fine. I'd like to complete A and B with Paul and any other interested parties. I think that's key for us to get those things done. They can be done pretty quickly. And then I'm quite interested in H and I'd say G, but I like I also. That's pretty important.
So that's PFAS, litter and road damage, traffic and road damage.
Right. Now I'm assuming that the other two, A and B, can be done quickly and they may not impact us for the rest of the year.
Okay. Thank you. We removed B. So by A and B, you mean fire and methane, right?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, he just means, he means C when he says B. Okay. Brent, are you online? Do you want to give your priorities?
So David needs a one.
Mine would be DEHL.
DEH.
L. L is a light bulb.
That's expansion, air, leachate, and service issues. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Chuck.
Well, I can't see that far, but I'm really interested in the methane because in light of the presentation given today with PNC and changing in the near future, the elimination of the CAT engines and going to natural gas pipelines and stuff like that.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah,
regenerative
yeah,
natural gas.
because the PGE contract will be running out in 2027. And,
Right.
and that, well, that's the near future, so
Right.
that would, not burning any more carbon with the engines and stuff like that. So
Right.
that's really good. Then I'm interested in the PFAS in leachate as well as runoff waters too, because that's a interesting topic, and EPA is still forming a lot of what their qualifications are going to be. So, and then I'll follow in with anything else.
Sorry, so Chuck, you have methane, PFAS. Did you have any others, or did you just
Water quality is always a good one.
groundwater?
Yeah, just from an I'm learning from that.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. I might be the boat anchor for it, okay?
And you have one more. We've got expansion, litter, air, any of those. Do you want to, there's another version over there that might be easier to see.
Okay. Which service issues at the landfill? Wait times, that's okay. Did I say hydrology and groundwater?
Yes.
Yes.
Then how about just traffic and road damage? That's a good one.
Okay. Paul?
I'm gonna stay because, but my comment is regardless of what I pick, I'm gonna be involved with all these regardless, so.
That's fair.
You're in.
Say yes to everything. Make
Or
one
no to
with
everything,
everything.
because it's inevitable that I'll be involved, so as best as I can, or I'll get people involved.
Gotcha. Okay. Dave? You're up.
Well, I'm clearly the methane and odors is a big one for me, and it was in the public comments,
Okay.
and I'm also very interested in the hydrology and groundwater one for sure. Some of these other ones seem sort of kind of operational-ish to me. I'm not sure what to do with the expansion application, because that's like full enchilada that NRAC's looking at. And that, yeah, I'm not quite sure about that.
That's all in committee reviews right now, so it's already been submitted. This county has deemed it complete.
Yeah, so the other one would be the PFAS, the leachate management to me. And then that's, the Title V is kind of rolled into the methane and odors as well.
Okay, so you've got three. Do you want to pick a fourth?
Damage. I guess I would go with the Title V permit.
Okay. I'm gonna pick methane, expansion application, PFAS, and let's go with groundwater.
Bingo.
All right, so we have our top picks are, actually, I want to change my vote. I'm sorry. I want to change my groundwater vote. I know it's ridiculous, but I'm just going to have it recorded that I'm interested in the community education. But that's not very helpful. But anyway, we have some good top picks. So we've got our kind of leader is PFAS, 7 votes for PFAS and leachate management. Next up is methane and odors. And then we have 2 tied for third. We have the expansion application and hydrology and groundwater.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Because the CUP application as I stated, it's already in committee review. What does this committee want to do with that as part of a thing? Whereas, to his point, we can actually get people in here, talk about the groundwater and hydrology.
Yeah.
And there could be some conversations on that. That just my interpretation for the short time I've been here. I mean, it's better, it's easier for us to get people in here talking about groundwater. How are we going to approach the CUP?
Yeah.
It's already in committee.
So that brings us to the second part of the conversation, which is talking about deliverables and what we can do. So I think that might help when we're, looking at these, like figuring out what's trackable. I mean, there are things that we could potentially do. We could write a letter, an open letter to the planning commission as like our input, adding to what is surely a very large stack of input, but it is what it is. Or it could be that our involvement is just assisting, having a few people volunteer to like liaison with NRAC or do something in preparation. I don't know. There are a lot of things we could do.
I like that idea, Paul, because those three topics, the methane, leachate management and hydrology, I mean, if we had a informational section where we bring ourselves up to speed, we're in a better position to assist anyone else, like put on your mask first and then assist someone next to you. So if NRAC had any questions, if the public had questions, I think the more we learn about those three topics, that is the long-term consequences and inputs to this system. I mean, in a nutshell, those are the core issues. Everything else is kind of superficial. You can handle trash. You can handle increasing your in and out take times. You can deal with litter and you can repair roads. Those are easy technical solutions. The others are more challenging and bigger impact.
I also think one of the really kind of a minor one is the community outreach. If people understood how organics impact the landfill and odors, and to put it in your yard waste, you would eliminate that methane going in production into the landfill, things like that. So when you let's say you have a Salem or Corvallis, like market night in the summer, you set up a booth and we talk about, proper waste management and things like that from a perspective from the private sector. People don't realize that the organics are causing the odors. You can take the odors out, the organics out, and you reduce the odors and the methane production.
I had a question about the compost services that you offer.
Oh, from PRC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that just for Benton County, or is basically every county that's shipping waste to the landfill also doing municipal composting?
I do not know that, but I can look into that. I'm not sure, but we will sell compost to anybody if they want it.
Oh, no, sorry. I mean, I'm wondering whether most of the organics are coming from counties outside of Benton County is basically it.
I don't know where the waste streams come from. I mean, you'd have to look at, I think the is it a Cop and Butte report? Did they list types of waste? I mean, I think but I don't think it lists where they come from. No. So that'd be kind of difficult to determine that.
Okay. All right.
Salem, for instance, brings material down to.
Oh, okay.
But even if you, and I don't know the answer to this, but I'm curious, if you were to stop the organic input today, what is that methane decay curve in decade-old units? I doubt, I'm sure.
It's a couple decades. You have to model it and do a gas curve, but basically the day you stop is the first day of your downward curve.
Yeah.
So the day you close, the last ticket you take is, as soon as you bury that trash, that's basically within a couple months, because it takes some time for that activation to go, but that starts your downward curve in your gas production. And
so Paul, are they specifically measuring the methane production at the compost site as well as at the regular landfill? I'm just going to call them two different places.
Okay, methane is colorless and odorless. You cannot smell it, or it's all the other components. But as far as I'm aware, we do not measure methane at the compost facility.
I suspect though, if, is the compost facility kept aerated?
Yeah, they turn them all the time.
You
yeah.
don't get methane under aerobic conditions, so I doubt it's, now, if you get down in the core of that stuff, it
Yeah.
hasn't seen daylight for a long time,
With-
maybe, but I don't think it's.
Within the pods, we
Anaerobic
have,
system.
the way it's designed, in the pods to keep the temperature down and regulate, we have blowers that go underneath.
Bring oxygen in.
To bring oxygen.
So that's gonna inhibit methane production.
Okay, I want to, so we've got these four, I want to kind of discuss what we would like to do with each of these. So for our, I'm gonna start with methane. So at the moment, David is going to reach out to Paul and start talking through these numbers specifically related to methane and how we like measure what's coming out of the landfill. But I guess the question is, like, do we want to try to come up with some kind of like report to the board or something like that at some point, or just kind of like produce some kind of thing checking with them on where things stand?
I like what Jennifer was saying, is a collective knowledge base that we need to build. And then it doesn't necessarily have to go to the board. We could publish something on our web page to say, hey, this is what we have so far. And then you have a commonality there of knowledge for the community and say, okay, this is what we've found, and we can validate it that way. So it's not, so we're not chasing fires is what I'm trying to say. And they're tough questions to answer, but I think if you can get a baseline or just a little island there, that's a starting point, and then we can build upon that. So it's an educational process too.
Yeah.
And so, and a collectiveness for DSAC. So DSAC, now you're building a knowledge base, so future DSAC members can rely on that.
Right, yeah. I definitely feel like it's hard to kind of move that keep that institutional knowledge. Right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And the technologies are changing too.
Yeah.
And that's relative to resolving some of the problems and create other problems, but some problems are better than others. So, and it's just like today with the gas production over there, where it's going to be changing.
Oh, like yesterday's meeting?
Yeah, yesterday's meeting. So that was very educational for me, where they're eliminating, and going in.
Yeah, 3 old engines that are 30 years old that really don't produce. And the goal, I don't know if you're familiar with what happened in the county meeting, but just a quick side note, PNGC presented to the county board their plans, because they have a gas contract they signed before Republic came into view. I think in 1997, they signed a 97-year contract to take gas to 2074. So yeah, 80 years almost. And so they have 5 engines there, 3 older ones from the 90s and 2 more recent ones. And they need to replace them because they're aging out. And they want to either get new, bigger engines to put more power into the grid, or in a better ideal world is to do a RNG plant, regenerative natural gas, where they scrub the gas and they put it into gas. So it'll go from power to a gas system, and they put gas into the Northwest gas system. And typically when they scrub gas, it's usually cleaner than a natural gas, believe it or not. So
what was interesting there, that their line was at 6,000,
6 megawatts.
6 megawatts.
Yeah.
And actually, the methane level was up to 10 here in the last.
Right, that's all flared. That's all being flared.
Well, that's the question.
Yeah.
Is it all being flared, or is some of it being lost?
There's probably some transmission loss, but it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But right now we're at 3,000 SCFM. So the plant takes about 1,900, and we fluctuate about around 9 to 1,000 a day, so.
Yes, so that's important to document that.
Well, that is all
process.
recorded. It's all
Yeah.
submitted to DEQ and as in our
Okay,
recorded reports.
I just want to.
Yeah, so yeah, see, we're
Just trying to keep us
yeah,
on track a little bit. Okay, so lots of questions about, like many questions about methane, like is Copper Butte a super emitter? Like,
right.
how much is coming out? How much is being captured? How could that change? How do we monitor it? Can we trust carbon mapper? All of these things, right? So I guess the question is like what we do with these questions.
So you'd have, draw up a list of questions.
Yes.
First step is draw up the list of questions. So this committee can become more informed and I'll do my best to answer all them.
Yeah.
On a, whether kind of like a document or whatever. And I'll work with people who are way smarter than me for gas on our teams and come up with a straightforward answer to a lot of these questions. That way we can build on that as our kind of like our basement foundation to build on and expand out on that stuff.
I like that idea. Can this be done? Is this okay records wise can we just do this in like a collaborative Google Doc or something like that? I ask because a lot of these questions are just being like posed individually to you from committee members over email. And it's hard for us to get like visibility as a committee about like what's being answered and things like that. Like,
yeah, I have to check internally what we can. I mean, a lot of the stuff is basic public knowledge. And it's stuff you can Google, how does methane produced in a landfill, things like that. But specifically to us, but to us, for Copper Butte, the specifics, I have to gather that data and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke. I just meant collaboratively for the committee.
Yeah.
Not that we would like add Republic as like a collaborator, but basically just that we could pool our questions and structure.
Oh,
them.
Yeah, you're right.
And kind of draft answers there. I think that might be, I don't know, David, how do you feel about that as like a process? Because I feel like you're kind of on your own trying to work the emails and maybe it would help structure your questions a little bit.
I think David is left for David.
Okay. Well, let's put a pin in that one. And maybe, I feel like this is something that is not super urgent. Like we can probably, this does not need to be done in the next few months. Like it's something we can chip away at. There's nothing.
If you can get me questions whenever you want, we can build that document as we go.
Yeah.
But you hit the nail on the head. Let's just say hypothetically, I have 5 questions. Do I email it to you and Bailey and then you disseminate it?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, I feel like we could just be much more efficient if we
had an open document, like you said, Google Docs or somewhere we can all
just add questions. And look at answers as we get them and kind of structure things. Because if the end product, which I think is a really good one, is some kind of like white paper FAQ for the committee and potentially the public, like if we can kind of get that rolling sooner rather than later, I think that would be helpful.
Right, so I don't know. Yes, whatever vehicle we could use. And I'm not sure if there's some restrictions on it by Benton County, so that's where it is.
Yeah, well, should there be? I mean,
maybe somebody else could.
So Bailey, this is related to DSAC or NRAC, but Bailey can ask Sean about this, but I think they use Microsoft Teams and do collaboration within Teams on purpose because then it becomes less public than a Google Docs.
It's funny, like that I wasn't concerned about it leaking because all of our communications are supposed to be public anyway. I was more concerned about it not being public enough,
Right.
I don't, could Petra answer this question? Is she around?
Here.
Petra, can we just set up Google Docs for ourselves to collaborate on things?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Can we set up Google Docs for ourselves to collaborate on things?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm multitasking and didn't have the screen up.
It is all good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Google Docs is fine. We also have FTP site options for large documents.
Okay, great. That's really good to know. Thank you.
Okay.
Will preface that there are certain things that I cannot get access to, like Dropbox, things like that,
Yeah.
we restrict because of
Stay away from
security.
that stuff.
So it's really, so we can try, and then if this could have a list, you can just send me, email me the list, and then I can respond. That can be posted however it's easiest. But
Yeah.
I just want to say, before we go down that road, to make sure, whatever you create, just to verify that I have access to that. I don't think it would be an issue, but I find new things out every day that I can't access anymore because they changed something.
Okay.
So.
I
Got
did Google Docs one time too, and I opened it up and I'm going, oh man, these commands are all different. But what I did learn was I could put it in Word and then paste it in there and it looked good.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
I think it's gotten a little bit more friendly.
Yeah.
It is. All right, so it's just a kind of baseline plan as something we can do. We could just start, I'll start a Google Doc.
I think that can be applied to all these topics.
Probably, yeah.
Just as a broad base to build up a foundation on.
That makes sense. Does that sound good to everyone? So we'll just have our PFAS leachate doc, our methane odor doc, and our hydrology groundwater doc. We'll just kind of add to them as we go.
I'm still wondering how to focus this down a little bit to very specific questions about each one of those topics.
Yep.
Because if we have March, April, May, I don't even know how many months if we're gonna get a deliverable to somebody that is gonna use it in helping to make the decision, that's not very much time for a group of volunteers to do.
Are you talking about the expansion proposal?
Yeah.
That's separate. We're just kind of talking about these.
So we're gonna do this through the rest of the year?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to sort out here. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I guess what you're saying is if we did something in these areas and released, a white paper in time, it may have
That's what I'm
some
saying.
impact versus
I mean,
getting out the chance.
I love groundwater and hydrology, but I don't want to just work on something and do it and say, oh, here you go. Nice working with you.
Right.
If to invest that time, because I thought about it today as I was looking at this, because started to see a few things. If I was doing my professional practice, I would think that's going to take me about 160 hours to do that. To really do it. I mean, to do a deep dive into that. And, that, and in 3 months, that's a lot of time for a volunteer.
Yeah, no, and I totally hear you. If there are actionable things.
Yes, I was
that we
back
could
to
find
Jennifer
out.
said, if we're gonna do something, let's try to get it to people that could use the document in a decision.
Right.
Help them.
So how about I volunteer to give a short overview of, PFAS in leachate, in air, in landfills, and a small bit on what happens to them in wastewater treatment plants, namely our treatment plant. Kind of keep that short, sweet, literature people want it. Because we benefited from Republic coming in and giving us a very focused PowerPoint, learned a lot in a short period of time. It could be kind of like, it's not, exhaustive, but it would mean to give you more information on what some of the questions are.
That would be great. I think that would be really
So
nice.
I would volunteer to do that. I mean, to get her going, I would do that at the next meeting if there was time and interest on the agenda.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think if there are no objections, we could definitely make time for that on the agenda. I do want to back up though, because all of these topics, you're completely right. All of these topics could potentially feed into any feedback or input we would have on the expansion proposal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I would hope so.
So maybe we just kind of go at this conversation from the other side. So the big time sensitive thing is the expansion proposal.
Right.
Should we have a nominal plan that we try to offer the Planning Commission some input, or that we, in the interim, work with NRAC and kind of make a decision one way or the other by a certain date? to give the planning commission some public input. Something like that.
I think so. That's just me, because I heard snippets about groundwater, arsenic's high, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, I would think a more comprehensive look at it in, in sort of a real tight white paper would be a helpful thing to people.
Okay.
That I'm volunteering.
So Rachel,
Right.
by the end of next month is what they have set for NRAC to make a comment, create the letter and make a final comment to the land use commission or whatever it is that gets it next, the land commission, planning commission, the
Okay.
county planning commission. I think that's the right thing. So if we're looking at doing it rather quickly from a DSAC point of view, I would say we don't have a lot of time.
I agree, because it's kind of a finite amount of wiggle room there, to be truthful with you. And since NRAC has already proposed it, it's a matter of just reviewing theirs and saying you want to agree with it or not, instead of authorizing something else. I think we need to work on wider perspectives here of like a white paper and just keep looking at what NRAC is doing from an educational standpoint, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Charlie, I'd love to hear your input on this because I'm not sure how to proceed. Like, as committee members, we each have our own like burning questions that we want answered, right?
Right.
And do you feel like that's true for the NRAC committee members as well? They have their own interests and that's
it's a diverse group of people, and some are students and some are PhD candidates and some are very much, Jason very much admires Jennifer's PFAS knowledge. I'll just say that for him because I see his picture, but I don't see him. So I don't know where his face is. But I think that they are creating this thing in Microsoft Teams to create a letter by the end of the next meeting that will go to the, so I think it's meant to be pretty fast. And I do think that we have a place because the Disposal Site Advisory Committee does have what is existing as the disposal site. Whether we think the expansion is okay or not is something we can weigh in on. We can make a comment that we are supportive of it or not supportive of it, depending on, or we can comment on the landfill as it is. Because I think I think everyone comes here with a special view. I see PFAS as an endocrine disruptor. I see the EPA active investigation of coffin butte as a concern. These are things that make me very worried. And I don't know if everyone has looked at the packet because it's really kind of buried, and I've asked Bailey to clarify, am I looking at this correctly? Is EPA actively investigating coffin butte for methane leaks? And they show pictures of trees growing through the plastic and whatever. And that was in November after they'd already been cited. It seems like there's an active investigation. We're not even commenting on that. There's a concern that the place that has possibly an active EPA investigation in currently, and I know the administration may affect that to some degree, but they have an active investigation. They have an old Title V permit. There's really concerns about whether they're doing, I think it's tough to do a really super job. And Paul, you just got the job there, so I'm not gonna, please don't hear negative from me about what you do for a living, because that's not what you'll hear from me. But I'm a physician and I worry about PFAS as an endocrine disruptor in the water systems. I'm an environmentalist and I don't want to have a landfill on wetlands. I think that that's a bad thing. I don't think PFAS are going to be good 20 years from now. We're going to be like, oh my God, we were dumping shit in the Willamette River. And even when it goes, the leachate is no longer going to be taken by Corvallis for the water treatment. It'll go someplace else, but it'll all end up, after it gets filtered through the water treatment system, it'll all end up in the Willamette River. That's not a good place for it. It's not a good, I'm sorry, I think we've made a mistake. So I think we can, as a committee, make a comment, but you know, that depends on what people think.
Thanks, Charlie. So just to clarify, you guys have to get a letter to the planning commission by the end of April. That's what you said?
Yep.
And then DSAC if we were to submit a letter, it would be to the planning commission after that during some public comment period in May or something like that, right?
I think anytime we want to.
I think that the period is likely to close at the end of April. I don't think the exact window has been determined yet.
I see. Okay.
But I think by the end of April, DSAC would need to submit any comments if that's what DSAC wants.
To INRAC or the commissioners?
To the planning commission.
Yeah, to the planning commission.
By end of April.
Yeah, I have a response. I appreciate your words, but I want to make clear, it's not an investigation. It is a document request. The EPA does this to multiple sites, not only landfills across the nation. The goal is to try to determine what is a standard of emissions and things like that. So that is what is going on. It's not an investigation. If it's semantics, okay, fine. You want to call it an investigation? It is a documents request. We supplied Bailey to the committee the request because it is a public document. That information is due to EPA, I believe, at the end of April. They'll review it, and as they do multiple sites, they'll look at it, and they're trying to build up a baseline to understand what is going on with landfills and other deposits. And unfortunately, we're a passive PFAS recipient, but it's a big target. All the PFAS comes in from everybody's trash. We're trying to come up with ways to break it up, foam fractionation, reverse osmosis. You know, there's all these technologies that are coming out, but the question is can it handle the load, the amount? So I just want to clarify on language that is a document request. It's not an investigation.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, Charlie, looking at a packet, to me, that's what it looked like as well. It was just a documents request. So, but I feel like that is definitely, let's keep chatting about it because I think that's one question we could still use some clarity on.
It seemed to follow their actually on-site investigation in November of 24, which seemed like it was meant to follow up their investigation, the prior one that Merkley had commented on. I haven't heard anything back from Merkley's office specifically, but this freedom, I thought Bailey obtained this through the Freedom of Information Act. Was that from you, Paul?
The Republic provided Bailey the document.
Yeah, all the pictures?
I'm sorry, say again?
With all the pictures?
Oh, no, I thought you were talking about the EPA 114 document request that we were served in January. I'm not familiar with that, with the pictures. I'm not familiar with that.
November 24th, November of 2024, they showed active pictures of trees growing through the cover, and they were showing tears in the plastic cover.
Yeah, Billy got that, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know they were out in 24, but I have not been able to get into that report among all the others. This document request was from 2022 up to the serve date of January 21st, I think it was. if my memory serves me, so we have to provide documentation.
Yeah.
And you guys saw it, so you know what it's entailed, so.
Okay, I want to kind of keep us on track and come up with some kind of plan in the time we have left. So my proposal is that we start a Google Doc and just as a kind of first pass, load in all of the questions that we think are worth answering before the public comment period closes. Things that we think are important for the planning commission to know, questions that we are seeking answers for, aspects of the site that we think are worth flagging. And then at our next meeting, we decide what to do with it. Does that sound like a good baseline plan?
Would you be kind enough to, if you're gonna make one Google Doc, just make the Google Doc across the board, so if the light comes on in the middle of the night, I can put it over here. It's a little bit more flexible that way is what I'm trying to
I
say.
don't understand.
I'm not sure what you mean.
You said you were gonna make multiple
Yeah, I think just for first pass, one Google Doc
okay,
for the questions and details about the site that we would
okay.
be interested in focusing on as it relates to responding to the expansion proposal.
Oh, limited to that.
Just one, well, but it could include a lot of these things that we identified as priorities today.
Okay.
So it'll be a working draft. We'll kind of just like add to it over the course of the month, and then we'll meet next.
So we'll have our 4 topics in there that we talked about, we voted on, and one Google Doc, they have questions under each topic.
I don't
Which
think
is fine. I
don't think we need to be restricted to those 3 topics. Like if there are other things that you think are worth mentioning, you can include them. So.
Well, except we went through that exercise to focus, so.
We went through that exercise to focus on our priorities for 2025. Not on our priorities for responding to the expansion proposal. So, I mean, those are like clearly the things that are of the most interest to the committee. So probably those will be the things that we'll focus on in the doc. I'm just saying, like, if there's something else you want to mention, or once
So the
they're
Google
curious
Doc
about.
has a very short fuse on it. That's very,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. So that's our time sensitive thing. And then we can just kind of go from there and maybe kind of work on refining these other things after we're done with this time sensitive thing. Does that?
So you're not gonna let us multitask then on different topics?
That's right.
Oh, it'll be tough.
Is everyone all right with this plan? Are there any objections? Any concerns? No?
What do you want from Republic to a certain point? Because if I get 100 questions, it's going to be nigh impossible to be able to answer, I think, all of them.
Yeah.
Coherently.
I totally hear you.
So,
I think maybe to start, we should just figure out what our top priority questions are, and then we will like compile a tractable list for you.
okay. And I'll do everything I can to get answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can chime in before my internet dies again here, but I'm in favor of putting together that list like you suggest, and then we'll weed out the most important ones and then ask Paul to convey those and see if he has answers or something.
Sounds good. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's just going to be this is going to be an evolution in trial and error, I think, for a little bit till we figure out.
Yeah. But yeah.
It's a good start, a foundational start. I think.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that there will be questions where you can't answer them.
Yeah.
For example, the groundwater, we've seen that data. It's all relative to that groundwater well over time. It's not in relationship to anything else. So you can't tell if it's a hotspot for arsenic or if the whole dang valley is a hotspot for arsenic. That's a big deal to know the difference between that. So having information outside of the boundary helps you put what's inside the boundary groundwater wise into perspective. High salinity. Is it high salinity? Is it high reduced metals? Is it, and because it's all relative. And if you're asking, are there refugee emissions? There are clearly materials that are exported deliberately. That's leachate, it's exported with the wastewater treatment plant. There are refugee emissions. There are uncontrolled exports. And groundwater, I can't figure out if it's a thing or not, or if that's just the tightest thing.
That's my big question.
It's and that's what
Is that-
everybody wants to know. And
Is it a
until
thing
you
or not?
know that,
That's
or
my
have
question.
some context to make a decision, nobody knows it, right? And if you only look within the site and within a well, within over time, you can't tell.
No, you can't.
You just can't make those kinds of decisions. So we have to ask Eric or whomever, can you tell us about a half mile away, a quarter mile away? Can you tell us about, hydrology is all about spatial context. It's got to make sense, right?
Right.
And you, if you're saying concentration is going up that way, but your groundwater is going that way, that won't make sense. So it has to make sense. And if you don't have that context, you can't make sense out of it.
But that's the essence of knowledge you're transferring that's relevant to us. And in other words, they're in the Google Doc to say, here's the criteria that really has to have to make sense. And it's not telling, what's in the well, but the knowledge base to say,
Yeah, like for example, Paul, you might not have control over wells outside of your boundary. That would make sense. So you might not even have, that's an example where you might not have that access. But if we have someone who has a broader perspective where this is a location within that larger scale, then we can go, wow, that is really amazing. That is not leaking. That's cool, or, oh, you just can't get there. So that's why I'm saying you might not have every single answer. I wouldn't
It'll
expect
take
you to
me
have.
probably a decade.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot of
We don't have that answer.
Yeah, yeah, I do think it's fair there's no reason we can't raise questions we don't have to have
Yeah.
all the answers. We can say things are still unclear.
Because
on the
that's what the
subject.
public wants to know.
Right.
That is key. They want to know what's going up in the air, and you know
Yes.
methane is, that means other stuff is too.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Right.
I mean, it's not selected for methane. So these are these big questions that your folks may not be able to answer, but
Yeah.
those are the big ones.
yes,
Okay, so I'll start a Google Doc and share it with everyone, right? And then we will start working on it. I guess my question would be for next meeting, so in terms of agenda items, Jennifer, you could have your PFAS lecture.
Mhm.
Do we want to see if Republic can bring in Eric to do a hydrology
Oh.
thing next time? I don't know if he would potentially be available, but given the
I
time
have
sensitive,
never
He's
conversed
probably
with.
retired.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm hoping to hear back from him.
Who's the other person that you said could potentially do it? Wasn't there a hydrologist you mentioned?
I thought Brett was referring to someone internally that's at corporate, but she's not familiar with the site.
Okay.
So that might not be
There's another consultant that was hired, hydrogeologic or something.
Geologic Associates. Yeah,
Somebody that's,
yeah, they took over for Eric
yeah.
for the groundwater sampling, which is going to be starting next week, I think, or next month. So I can reach out to them and ask them to review the data, but crunching data like that, like you said, takes some time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you have all of the spreadsheets and all of everything all set up, it takes time, but from flipping through reports.
I mean, from the hydrology standpoint, I didn't realize right where the offices are on Coffin View Road, half it goes to the west and half it goes to the east. I didn't-
Flow lines go like that.
Soap Creek goes.
Until I started
one way.
looking at it, I'm like, you're right, we're at the apex of.
Soap Creek goes one way, yeah.
So,
you are.
so when you look at wells, they're not gonna correlate everything because you have two different, hydrology,
Yeah, it's not super straightforward, and that's what I've been looking at too, going, this is gonna
And
take
is
a little
that,
time.
is that fractured flow?
Yes, slat fiber volcanics, right.
Oh, and that's totally different than porous media. I mean, it's probably porous down to a certain point and you hit bat rock. I just don't know where the water table is. I don't know what it looks like underneath there.
It's, it is wonky.
So if we were gonna,
It's fracture flow.
so the question is like, will Eric come out of retirement to talk to us?
He says he knows them,
I do know him, and I texted him, and I have not called him yet, but, yeah, he's a super nice guy, but he's my age, and he should be retired just like me. but
Okay.
Take them out for a beer.
But even, you know,
take
even
him out
just,
for a go drink.
a regional,
Yeah, but
you know,
that's-
semi-regional map of arsenic, simple things like
There-
salinity and DOC and oxygen or whatever, you know, usual you get off a geoprobe, you know,
Yeah.
just to know, like, even just general, you don't even have to get fancy about PFAS. It's just, that tells you, you know, high salinity tells you a lot, you know, or nitrates or phosphates or arsenic or some of these indicator species that move readily with groundwater.
I got a comment, please. This is all very interesting. We're almost running out of time, as you might know. And there is one question I had, and that is, there's stuff on the chat that looks interesting. Is it going to be saved for looking at later?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, David. I was just about to flag Kate Harris's comment. She was saying it would be great if Republic would offer free well tests to the surrounding and down gradient homeowner wells to show good faith and desire to track impact. Edge analytics was one option to provide well testing on the HP campus. So, yeah.
Well, I'm not even sure if Republic needs to do that. You know, it could be the county does it.
Yeah, that's very true.
We have, I know on Soap Creek, would be west of Soap Creek, we have wells on that side too. Nothing goes to that side because obviously Soap Creek is at the bottom.
Mhm.
So, and that's close, but I'm not sure of the east, but
Yeah.
Soap Creek is that drain point for this area. So nothing I believe would go past that way, but downstream, I wouldn't know. I would have to check, but I don't think I'd have to check internally on that, so.
All right, so we should wrap up.
But fun fact, I mean, there are many sources of nutrients, so we'd have to be very careful to not ascribe a nutrient hit to the landfill if it doesn't
Exactly.
go on a hydrologic flow path, right? If it's upgrading, no way, that's not.
You go downstream, you have a high hit of nitrates and stuff, that could be the fertilizers.
Or it could be your home's own septic. We just saw a piece on, what's the Elmaker wayside, if you go to the coast here. They've got, you pick up the water in there, there are tracers of septic, but it's not, it's only chlorinated. And think they're contacting your own septic, but well filled to feed the water in there. I think that's how I would explain it. So that's probably not uncommon, right? Your well field septic. So anyway.
Well, the county has a program for that.
You have to
Water well
take that.
testing.
That's why you have to put it into spatial hydrologic context.
Okay.
The nitrate doesn't mean it's you guys.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Extension.
All right, so
Does that.
there were a couple of items that we didn't get to, and we're not going to get to because I'm
Good for you.
trying to adjourn us at 8, but I just want to flag that, you know, there are the documents, if you haven't looked at them, in the meeting packet about EPA measurements and methane, so probably worth a look at some point. And also Bailey included the VNex flyer that was sent out to a bunch of people in the neighborhood of Coffin Butte, which talks about how leachate makes its way into the Willamette River, and Debbie, whose last name is Palmer, wrote an email kind of clarifying what the reasoning was behind the way they presented that information. So also just kind of worth a look.
And I recommend you look at that because part of what I will do will help understand why that language, and it ultimately is about language. So I'll include those concepts that are addressed by that memo and that flyer.
Great, thank you. All right, if there isn't anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Next meeting time, date and time before we adjourn.
Oh, yeah, so I think it's on the calendar for April, second week of April.
I believe it's April 9, if I read it correctly.
I just want to verify that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wednesday,
Thank you.
April 9.
Okay.
Wednesday,
4
April
weeks.
9th, okay.
I didn't catch who. Or not.
David seconded it, but I don't think anyone made the motion.
I move that we adjourn.
It's
I got this, you did, yeah.
Thank you, Charlie. I don't know as chair whether I can actually move to adjourn or if I have to.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know how Robert's rules work.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. So Charlie made the motion, David had seconded. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. We got some homework to do, but I think it'll be good. Jennifer,